It's a fun thing to do. Everybody loves trains. And the kids grow up with Thomas the Tank Engine, and they see the turntable that we have and all of the other neat sights, all of our different train cars. And it's just a lot of fun.
All aboard the 2 passenger trains taking you on an excursion across the Poconos. Welcome to Pocono Mountains Podcast, everyone. I'm your host, Jim Hamill. This is Season 5, Episode 21. We have 2, count 'em, 2 passenger trains in the Pocono Mountains. One in Honesdale, my hometown. Of course, the Stourbridge Line is there. And the Lehigh Gorge Scenic Railway in Jim Thorpe, another popular excursion train. Both provide stunning views of 2 of the 3 rivers right here in the Poconos. Gorgeous fall foliage and wildlife, as well as historic perspectives along the rail corridors. Dee and Bree went for rides recently on both of the trains, and we'll have more on the September Pocono Mountains magazine. More on that in a bit. The Poconos is a year-round destination for millions, with 2,400 square miles of mountains, forests, lakes, and rivers. With historic downtowns and iconic family resorts, it's the perfect getaway. You can always find out more on PoconoMountains.com or watch PTN, the Pocono Television Network, streaming live 24/7. Now back to the episode. The Stourbridge Line and Lehigh Gorge Scenic Railway let you sit back, enjoy the scenery, and the beauty of the Poconos from 2 of our great downtowns, Honesdale and Jim Thorpe, respectively. Here are Dee and Bree from 2 separate trips on the trains. Enjoy.
Hey everyone, it's Deanna Fontanez with PTN, the Pocono Television Network. This month for our Bree and Dee adventure with myself and Brianna Strunk, we are taking a train tour. We have 2 passenger trains in the Pocono Mountains, and I'm kicking it off in Honesdale with the Stourbridge Line. I'm here with Jeff, the conductor. So Jeff, tell us about what you guys offer here excursion-wise and what guests can expect when they come on this train.
So we offer a variety of excursions from Easter all the way to the end of December, featuring kid rides, adult rides. We have a princess and superhero train. There's, pumpkin patch, Easter, all kind of great. We do a couple murder mysteries. Our dinner train is our best-selling event quite frequently. And the fall foliage, probably the best season of all. And Christmas. And the winter trains, you see a whole different look. Every season has its own beauty. I mean, in the spring, it's bright and green, and the fall with the fall foliage. In the winter, you tend to see a little bit more of the property, and if it snows, it makes it even more special.
So if guests come, no matter what season, they're getting a different experience every time.
Yes. Beer tasting train. I mean, we have something for everybody. Like I said, there's stuff for the kids, there's stuff for the adults, there's stuff for the kids at heart. We have people that come for the Christmas train that don't even have kids, just because they like the feel of what it is.
So you guys take off from Honesdale and you end up back in Honesdale. So tell us how that is for if someone wants to come and do a day in the town.
So I always tell people if they're coming from a distance, especially, the town has so much to offer. Come early, come to the visitor center, pick up your tickets. There's all kind of information there from the PMVB that tells you other things to do in the town. There's a historic walking tour. The museum is right across the parking lot. But be sure to pick up your tickets when you first get there because there's several places in town that will give you a discount if you show the train ticket. So it's a little extra value to what you're doing for the day. And you could easily spend an entire day in town.
There's a lot of great eateries and shopping, and so you could eat, you can shop, and then you can come ride the train.
You can eat, shop, there's, you name it, it's there. And all kinds of food.
So tell us how you got involved with the Stourbridge Line and how many years you've been here and kind of what it means to you.
Well, I was born and raised here in this town, and it's funny, when I was a kid, history really meant nothing, but the older I got, the more it interested me. And I was, kind of alarmed that nothing in town really told our history about what we are. And my wife and I bought a restaurant, and we named it Trackside Grill, made it a thing where the waitresses wore red bandanas and engineer caps. We just embraced what we have, went to the borough and asked them, they painted the crosswalks to look like railroad tracks. So that was a fun little side thing that we did. And then I met Mr. Miles, who came here to basically save our train and was excited about what his investment and what he was doing for the community. That I joined with him and have been on his staff ever since and just enjoy what I do. It's nice to get people here, and when they get on here and see what they didn't ever realize was here. Even the locals who live here don't even realize what we have. So it's neat to share it with everybody.
And I like that you offer the different types of trains. So it's not just get on the train, ride, and nothing.
Oh.
You talk to them, you tell them history about the town and kind of like...
Even our basic train ride, you're getting a historic narration to hear more about the train ride. And there's always the occasional see a deer or eagle or whatever. That's always what makes it nice. And just, it encourages me to see families together, making memories. So it's a great job. I love what I do. And when people like what they do, it's not work.
Yeah, I agree with that. What would you say is one thing you hear frequently from customers?
It's neat when you meet especially some of the older people that talk about the times they rode the train as a child.
Yeah.
And it brings back those kind of memories. That's kind of a cool part of it. And the ones, like I say, that came from Long Island or something, they're used to the train into the city. It's not the same feel. So they'll comment about the scenery, not the typical thing they're used to. So that's a cool part.
Sometimes it's a little bit of like sit on the train, unplug, and enjoy the beautiful sceneries of the Pocono Mountains.
Yep, I say that too. Other than taking pictures of cell phone, forget about that. Just and you see people fall asleep. It's just relaxing. It's a nice time.
Take it all in. Be still and take it all in.
That's it. Fall foliage probably being our busiest season. In the time when the leaves are changing. But as I say, every season has its own beauty. The winter, the snow, everything is special. But the fall foliage tends to draw the most people.
And you were saying that you have your different excursions per season. So you have your fall ones, your winter, Christmas, Santa ones.
Everything kind of ties in.
The stuff for the kids.
Yep, stuff for the kids, stuff for adults. We do adult Halloween party, kids Halloween party. So we try to make everybody happy. That's
the dinner trains. I like that idea too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Dinner trains are great.
So can you tell us a little bit about the history of the Strawbridge Line?
So the Strawbridge Line, back when they found coal in Carbondale, they brought it to Honesdale, wanted to get it to New York City. So they built a canal, but then they also were responsible for going to England to bring back the first locomotive to turn wheels on tracks in the Western Hemisphere, the Strawbridge Lion. Unfortunately, the measure in England, compared to U.S. measure, it was too heavy for the tracks. They used it twice and set it to the side as a stationary engine. But it was the first. The replica, which was built for the 100th anniversary, is on display in the local museum.
So where'd your passion for trains come from? I feel like every time I talk to you, the knowledge that you have in your brain is insane to me. You have this passion for it. Where did it come from?
I think just the history. And I do feel like I've learned a lot in the last few years, but there is so much still. Carl, one of our other conductors, is very knowledgeable about the trains and other ones in other areas. I think it's a job that you never stop learning. My wife puts up with a lot. We travel. I try to do a train every time I go somewhere because things are different elsewhere, and you learn from all of them.
It's the tricks of the trade, right? You learn from others to bring it back to here to Honesdale.
That's the key.
So not only do you have the knowledge that you learn and you try to grow all the time, but it's you give your guests and the riders an experience. So you're giving them the history that you learn, but also you add a little fun to it.
Yes, I do enjoy that. You tell stories about the area.
And I feel like it's an experience that you have to come try out for yourself.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. You can't really explain it. You do a website, tell people what it is until you do it and feel it. So somebody said to me, what about return customers? We have a guy that's done the dinner train, I think 5 times. It's the same thing, but they just love it. So that's encouraging. They like the camaraderie of it. Everybody, sometimes it's a table of 2 and they sit at a table of 4, they meet 2 more people. It's a great feeling.
You come on as strangers, leave as friends.
That's it. As I used to say, there's no such things as strangers, just friends we haven't met.
Yeah, I like it. Jeff and I are going to sit here and enjoy the ride while he teaches me a little bit more about the train. I'm going to toss it over to Brianna and Jim Thorpe while she enjoys the Lehigh Gorge Scenic Railway.
Now we've made it on our second passenger train here in the Poconos, the Lehigh Gorge Scenic Railway, picking up and dropping off from the beautiful town of downtown Jim Thorpe. I've got my ticket, and we're with Stan, one of the car hosts. Stan, thanks for taking a break from your job to talk to us a little bit today. Tell us about this ride, what people can expect.
Well, what they can expect, this is scenic train ride. We go 7.5 miles up through Lehigh Gorge State Park along the Lehigh River, and there's historical narration to go along with it. It's great for naturalists and train fans. We see a lot of different train sites. We go through the Jim Thorpe Rail Yard. We go across a couple nice rail bridges, and we talk a little bit about the history of the area. And we also go along the Lehigh River, so you get to see rafters and kayakers and all the fun things that go with the Lehigh River. There are some nice natural sights to see. You might see some wildlife. You'll see a small waterfall, as well as, the various old train tracks and train sites that went along way.
That's amazing. Lots of views, lots of history to be told. How long is this specific train?
The train, the ride itself is 70 minutes. It's an hour and 10 minutes round trip. So it's about 35 minutes up, 35 minutes back.
And we're sitting in the open air car, which feels so nice on a breezy summer day, but there's different places that people can sit, different views from different areas of the train.
There are. There's the open air, which is nice. Like you said, it's very breezy. There are no windows on the sides, just the railings. There is a roof to protect you from the elements. But you get the nice breeze and they have a great view. We also have a standard coach if you don't want to be out in the breeze. The standard coach has windows that open and it has seats that flip so you can face one another both ways or face forward both ways. We also have air-conditioned cars. We have a dome car where you sit up in an elevated dome, and it has curved windows on the top as well. And that has a great view as well. And we also have a crown car that's air-conditioned. It's kind of like the standard coaches in that you're enclosed, but it's much more comfortable.
And the Lehigh Gorge Scenic Railway operates year-round. You have different excursions throughout the year, including a fall foliage train, holiday train. Tell us a little bit about the different experiences.
We do that. We do. We have excursions beginning in October for fall foliage that will operate daily, and they're 45-minute rides up through Lehigh Gorge State Park and back. People love seeing the different foliage on those rides. They'll operate continuously through October and the beginning of November. And then come Christmas time, right after Thanksgiving, we start up our Santa trains. And our Santa trains, we have the cars decorated for Christmas, and Santa comes through with his helpers. We give treats out for the kids. We play Christmas music. It's really nice. It's a really nice experience. And that will start right after Thanksgiving.
And fall is a gorgeous time to visit the Poconos, specifically Jim Thorpe. Very popular times aboard the train, but really you have different views throughout the different seasons.
There are different views throughout the season. One of the most beautiful views is the wintertime. If there's a fresh snow, we'll still operate. And the snow is beautiful along the gorge, throughout the gorge. It's a really nice thing to see.
Wow. And tell us about the whole experience, because people can board the train, but that could be part of a whole day of fun in Jim Thorpe with the shopping, the eating, the different history tours. It's really just, you can make a whole day or a whole week or weekend out of it.
You can stay in Jim Thorpe. There are restaurants, there are shops, there are different tours that you can take in Jim Thorpe. You have the Asa Packer Mansion, the Old Jail Museum, things like that you can walk around. People enjoy the shops quite a bit, and all different types of restaurants that you can eat at as well.
As a car host, what do you do? And tell us your personal story of getting involved with this train.
Well, as a car host, what I do is basically I help people on and off the train. I collect their tickets, and I tell them a few stories along the way as to, the different things that you see and do or can see along the way. We also, I talk to them, find out where they're from, and I've met all different types of people on the train. I met people that I've graduated with their father, or I've met friends of my nephew who lives in Mechanicsburg on the train. So, and you meet people from all over the world, not only in the U.S. and Pennsylvania, but people come from all over the world and ride this train. It's amazing. And basically the way I got involved was I retired in 2019, and I was looking for something to do, and I always enjoyed trains. I had my grandfather work for the Reading Railroad. I had an uncle who worked for the Pennsylvania Railroad, and I always played around trains when I was a kid. So I thought, well, let me go online and see what Reading and Northern has available. And it actually, I started out, I was going to be, I wanted to be a conductor. But being as old as I was, I thought, I don't know if I can handle it. I do have some back problems. And so when I talked to Mr. Fisher, he said, well, why don't you do a ride-along and see what you think? And so a ride-along meant that I went to Penobscot and I rode along with the train crew for the day and did some conductor duties. And at the end of the day, I thought, well, I might be able to handle it, but I wasn't quite sure. My back was, a little bit sore, but I thought more or less a young guy's job. So he said, well, why don't you come and be a car host in Jim Thorpe? So I said, sure. And that's where I am. Since then, I've done narration and I work in the ticket booth as well.
It must be so exciting to see the smiles on everyone's faces, kids and adults.
That's the best part. That is the best part. When they're smiling, they're enjoying the ride, having a great time. That's good.
And when people are trying to find things to do in the Pocono Mountains, why would you encourage them to check out the Lehigh Gorge Scenic Railway and to come take a train ride?
Because it's a fun thing to do. Everybody loves trains. And the kids grow up with Thomas the Tank Engine, and they see the turntable that we have and all of the other neat sights, all of our different train cars. And it's just a lot of fun. And, we also get the older people, too, take a nap on the train, too, Train does have a tendency to put you to sleep
Very
sometimes.
soothing. Well, you are retired, so maybe you could take a little snooze. You could take a little break on the train
No, I don't
between
get
your
a chance
shifts.
to take a break.
Is there anything else we should talk about that we haven't covered already? I know there's so much when it comes to the train.
Well, there's a lot of just neat, interesting historical things to see. For example, we'll go under a pipeline up here. It's the first successful oil pipeline in the world. It initially ran from Corryville to Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and then it was extended to Bayonne, New Jersey. And that was in 1879 it was built. And it looks like a footbridge, but it's actually an oil pipeline. Now there's fiber optic cabling. And there used to be homes on the other side of the river. The people that lived in those homes were employed by the oil company to maintain the piping. But the only way to get over to those homes was either to wade across the river or take a boat or walk across that pipeline. The children that lived in those homes attended school in Mauch Chunk. It's Jim Thorpe. They used to come across the pipeline, drop down along the railroad tracks, and walk along the tracks to go to school. Now, back in those days, there were about 5 rail lines, and freight trains ran pretty much constant. But by law, the engineers could not stop and pick up the kids, but they'd slow down enough so the kids could hop on the caboose and ride the train into school. So it's all little stories like that and interesting things for people to see that's why they should come and ride the train.
Amazing stories, and you can come and make your own memories here on the Lehigh Gorge Scenic Railway with tours operating throughout the year. Stan, one of the car hosts here at the Lehigh Gorge Scenic Railway, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
The Stourbridge Line and the Lehigh Gorge Scenic Railway, 2 great excursion trains running this season and into the winter months in the Poconos. Find out more at PoconoMountains.com. Thanks for listening to the podcast. We'll have a new episode of Pocono Mountains Podcast each week, highlighting lots of the fun things you could experience while you're visiting the Poconos. Subscribe and leave a review or comment on whatever platform you listen.
In the Pocono Mountains, we always want you to feel like a guest in our home, our mountain home.
Our 4 diamond homes.
You can dream,
Relax, we'll do it all for you.
do it your own way. Choose a vacation rental home.
Our water parks are a splash of world class. We don't have to clean all these rooms, right?
The Pocono Mountains, where you're treated like a guest in all our mountain homes. Visit PoconoMountains.com.
We're back. Thanks for listening to Pocono Mountains Podcast. I'm Jim Hamill. Now for a Pocono Mountains Podcast Extra. For some perspective on the Lehigh Gorge Scenic Railway, the man behind the operation, Andy Muller, sat down with Chris Barrett a while back on Pocono Perspectives. Here's a listen. Enjoy.
Most people that you know that are successful did not do it for the money. They do what they have a passion for, they're great at it, and you end up making money, and that's what happened to me.
So if we could, though, I want to go back to 1963. If I could. There were a lot of folks in a town, bank tellers, right, and bank managers who knew you.
Right.
Why did they know you?
Well, so my mother bought me coin books at Pomeroy's in Reading when I was like 10 years old. And I don't know, I just had an instant interest in history and coins. So in 1958, I got my first red book, which that's the book like the Bible of American coins. And I still have that book. And I started collecting coins. And I did it for fun, just as a kid. I did it all through high school. I did it in college. They called me Coins at East Stroudsburg. And so as I was doing this, I realized that you could still go to the bank and find things. Everything wasn't picked out yet. So I basically grew up in the two banks in Hamburg, right? And everybody knew me. So as I was picking all these things out of the bank, I realized there's people who would buy this stuff. So in 1963, I set up in a sporting goods store just a couple coin cases and just started. On the weekends, I'd be there because I was in high school yet, selling coins, and that's how I started. So in 1966, I really started to expand the business, and I recognized that these Renninger's flea markets, that Schuylkill Haven, Adamstown, so there was one at Hometown. So in 1966, I rented a stand at Hometown. So I scheduled my classes that I was done on a Wednesday at 12 o'clock. I would drive every Wednesday from East Stroudsburg to Hamburg, pick up my coins, go up to Hometown, set up a stand from like 3 to 8, buy and sell coins. Then I'd pack everything up, bring it back to Hamburg, and drive back to East Stroudsburg. I did it every Wednesday night when I was a sophomore, 66. And that was really the start of my business. And then I started, and then I got a stand in Schuylkill Haven, coin stand there, and it just kept growing. And then one day I had an epiphany, and I'm realizing that if your mom walks into a store with a coin that's worth $100, in 90% of the stores, because it's unregulated, if they can buy it for $10, they'll do that. And I had an epiphany, and I said, you know what, I'm going to buy it all. I'm going to make sure nobody buys anything. I'm going to buy everything. I'm going to make it so rough on these other coin dealers they can't do business. And at that time, you really could generate unlimited money because you could write a check. And because everybody knew me in the bank, they would cash my check. So I opened an account in San Francisco. It took 2 weeks for the check to clear. So I was like kiting checks, writing checks with no money in the account, buying the coins, selling them, put the money back in the account. I mean, I can give you coin stories forever, how I did it, because I had no money. Nobody had any money, right? My grandparents had no money.
So the bank was giving you short-term credit, basically.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I'd just walk up the window with at that time, it might only been $500 or $1,000, and I'd say, I'd like cash for this. They would never check. My account was in San Francisco. They knew me. And no, there really wasn't a lot of fraud back then. You know what I mean? So you could do things. So that's how I got started. And so now I always had money. So after I had this epiphany, when silver coins, they started to melt silver coins. So you buy a bag of silver coins, it's 1,000 face value. That's 4,000 quarters, 10,000 dimes, 2,000 halves, right? So I started buying those bags of silver from the general public because everybody had a grocery store, a grandmother, grandfather, they threw all this silver aside. So all people that had no money had all this silver because it was just spending money and they were smart enough to save it, right? So silver went to like $1,100 for a $1,000 bag. That was like right early when they started melting it. I started paying $10.90. Working on nothing, because I could drive to New York and deliver it to Iron Mountain for nothing with my car. So when I was paying $10.90, everybody else was paying $10.10, $10.20. So I realized I could buy it all. So I built this business throughout the 70s by paying the last nickel for everything. I made virtually no money, but I was building because I have a long-term perspective on everything I do. You can see it on the railroad. It's all a long-term perspective. I don't go quarter to quarter. I don't care. In October of 1979, I was doing so much business that I got investigated by the Organized Crime Strike Force, the Postal Authorities, the FBI. Everybody from Philadelphia was coming into my store because they thought I was laundering money, because I did $55 million worth of cash business in October of 1979. That's like $500 million today. In 1 month, 55 million. And they wouldn't believe this, right? And then there was a lot of more complications to it. Well, then I became friends with all these guys at the FBI and at the Postal Service. So then I became an expert witness on counterfeits. So I did a lot of testifying in Philadelphia. So I made friends with all these guys that came in most likely to arrest me in the beginning, right?
So now you're still operating the coin business.
Oh, my son does a couple $100 million a year. Well, we're big because we paid all the money. And over time, just like I feel I built a reputation at Jim Thorpe for, running a quality operation with quality people, people notice that. It takes time. You have to have a long-term perspective. I built that reputation in the coin business. Everybody knew Muller. Most of my business was dealers. They were coming from New York, Philadelphia, Syracuse, Washington. That's why the FBI and the Organized Crime Strike Force thought I was laundering money, because they said, there's no way you can do this kind of business in Hamburg. I had a day in November of 1979, I made $350,000 in one day. Because I did something that other big dealers didn't do. I never hedged anything. So the one day, I'm sitting on, I don't know how many ounces of silver, and the market jumps $5 in one day. And then every day I was making money, because what happened was, what I did with the silver bags, what nobody else would do, I took them to New York for almost nothing. But then when silver went up to $25,000, $27,000 a bag, I said, nobody else can compete with me now. So that's when I was making money. So I was making $1,000 a bag, and I had days I bought 100 bags a day. Nobody knew what I was doing except, like the government officials, right? Like nobody in Hamburg even knew what I do. They see all the people going on. They didn't know what I was, And then when I went to join the Masons, somebody accused me of being a drug dealer. I almost didn't get in the Masons because, well, I made all this money, and they thought I had to be doing something. And I convinced them that, I've never done drugs. I don't like drugs. And I ended up getting in the Masons back then. But, nobody had any money. Now you hear billionaires and millionaires. And in the 70s, nobody had any money. The richest people in your town maybe had a few $1 million. They owned a silk mill, and they were collapsing. There was no money around. And I had millions in cash. And I was 33 years old when I quit and retired.
So you could have stayed retired very easily, right?
Oh, I never had to work again. I hit the silver just right, and as soon as I got out of the business, I put all my money in bonds, bills, T-bills, and notes. Well, the interest rates just went through the roof, right? And I bought all short term, so I didn't lose anything. I just kept buying and buying. I had bonds that were paying 16%. That was the high. They paid about 16.5. I had a 20-year bond that I just got rid of in 2006 that paid 16%, 16.5% from 1986. So I made every move right there. I wasn't working. I wasn't doing anything. And I just put all my money in treasuries, and that went through the roof. I made more million. So basically, there were a lot of young guys that made money like I did, right? We were all married. We were all now sort of slowing down because you're burned out. You just couldn't do anymore, right? I was burned out. I was working 7 days a week, every day. I was buying silver at midnight on Saturdays. I hardly slept, And so I just quit. I had enough. I couldn't do it anymore. So now here you got a 33-year-old guy with millions of dollars. So I'm sitting in a bar room one night, and this guy yells down from the other bar. He says, Muller, they're tearing the railroad on in Hamburg. You should buy it. You have lots of money. I said, what?
And did you like railroads at the time?
Well, I was playing with trains my whole life. Yeah. So I said, really? They shouldn't be tearing these railroads out. That's not right. We need these railroads. So I went home. I got my honey. I said, come on, we're going for a walk. Went to Hamburg. We walked the railroad. I said, I'm buying this. Just like that. I called the Penn Central Corporation, and I offered them a certain price. And they said no. And there was no traffic on the railroad. There were actually some trees growing up in it. But I knew I could turn this thing around, right? So the Penn Central says, well, no, this is a working railroad. I had it appraised For the 13 miles, they appraised it at like $300,000. So I offered Penn Central $300,000. And he says, no. He says, this is a working railroad. I said, well, there's trees growing up in it. Well, the state of Pennsylvania is paying us $1.2 million. Well, what the Penn Central Corporation did was the railroads that were taken out of the final plan, they went to the state and they said, if you don't buy them, we'll tear them out. So they blackmailed the state. So the state goes and buys it for $1.2 million, right? Well, I did my homework. I found out they needed a designated operator because they don't operate the railroads, right? So I went to Harrisburg and literally kissed a lot of ass, and they designated me as the operator. So the state leased it to me for $1. So now I had my $300,000. I had the railroad. We formed a shippers group, and a couple businesses started using the railroad, and that's how I first got started. And the first year, I had 3 employees, and we did 80 carloads. And then I realized that Conrail was going to sell a lot more railroads. And I made a rule, though. If it wasn't connected, I don't want it. And I'm not buying anything unless it's within like 75 miles of my house. Because I could have bought railroads in Nebraska, Wyoming. Nobody wanted them. There were so many railroads sold for $1 because there was so much capital improvement needed, right? Because they had deferred maintenance for years. So you buy them for $1. And then you go to the government and get capital money to help you. And then in 1986 or 87, over in the Perkiomen Railroad, the Emmaus Railroad, the Kutztown Railroad, and the Boyertown Railroad, these are all little short lines. The guy that was operating those fell down. And I had made some friends in the Senate, and this one senator called and said, Mueller, get over there and operate those railroads. So they gave me 4 more state railroads. So the state said to me in 1990, if you buy the Reading cluster, and that's everything from Reading to Pottsville, Tamaqua, we'll give you a $6 million grant to put ties in and help you. And that's what they did, and that's what really got me started in 1990. So that took my mileage from 50 miles to 175 miles. I bought 40 miles in 1992. I bought 101 miles in 1996. I bought another 18 miles in 98. And that's altogether, it's between 300 and 400 miles.
I think it's really important to say that you've taken money out of your own pocket. So it's not only that the state help you, but you invest.
Here's what I do differently. I have a long-term perspective. And this is what I play with. This is my model railroad. I spend money on things nobody in their right mind would. I mean, nobody would build these passenger stations and run these trains like I do. I don't make much money. I make money at Jim Thorpe. That's pretty good, right? On the daily trains. But, running out of Pittston, I'm building a complete passenger facility in Esquehoning that would millions and millions of dollars. Nobody would do that.
But you're doing so much to preserve the history of railroading.
Well, that comes along with it.
Right.
Because there's so many people love the trains, love the history, and that's been a great support. But that's the sideline of it. I mean, obviously, you can't do a multi-million dollar business for the history. Right. But because it's my passion and it's what I like to do, it ends up being a big part of it.
Well, Andy, this has just been such a joy talking to you, and I think we've learned a lot. But before we go and before we end the interview, I want to ask if what piece of business advice would you have for somebody who came to you and said, Andy, what's the best business advice you would have for me? What would you say?
Well, I'll tell you what I want on my tombstone. He was fair. But take a long-term perspective and treat people fair. Run a business that you would send your mother to. Think about that one.
That's a good one. I think we're going to end on that, but you're watching the Pocono Television Network. This has been Pocono Perspectives, and we were very fortunate to speak with Andy Mueller. And guess what? He's a serial entrepreneur, and he's done things in his life that he's loved, and he's been greatly successful. And we're grateful for the time that we've had with him. I'm Chris Barrett for the Pocono Television Network. Thanks for watching.
The Lehigh Gorge Scenic Railway, one of 2 rail gems in the Poconos. Thanks for listening. Please remember to subscribe to Pocono Mountains Podcast and leave a review or comment on whatever platform you listen. Come visit us in the Pocono Mountains. Plan your trip today